Hi, Ryan. How you doing?
I am going very, 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 very swimmingly. I am feeling very good. How about you?
No, that's wrong.
No, it's wrong? Oh, we're getting into this fight again. But Rachel, life is life.
No, it's wrong because you didn't say yummy yum.
Yummy yum. You're right. I'm feeling yum yum. I'm sorry. I've let everybody down. Everybody comes to this podcast to hear me say the line, Bart. Say the line. Yum, yum. Yep. And then everybody cheers. Yum, yum. We are, of course, the iconic YumYumPodcast, the only Australian Babylon 5 rewatch podcast, and the only Australian Star Trek Discovery rewatch podcast that has the title YumYumPodcast. I don't want to claim that we're the only Australian
wow.
Discovery podcast because I don't think we are.
That went downhill fast.
Like Yum Yum. So we are here to talk about Babylon 5 in a rewatch capacity, what does that mean, Rachel? What does that mean for people who have not seen the show before?
You shouldn't listen.
Get out of here.
Because we will be spoiling.
Yeah, you're dismissed, soldier.
Dismissed. Go watch the show.
Come back.
And then come back to us.
Come back.
There are other podcasts that don't do spoilers for Babylon 5.
But they're not here. We're here.
If you want company as you do it, come back to us.
I really thought if you said
After.
if you want come back to us. We are here, but we're not here alone.
No.
We're not here alone. We have a Dr. Franklin heavy episode, so we have to get our Dr. Franklin and Doctor and Sci-Fi expert. He's here, everybody. Everybody get your hands together to clap. Julio from the Contrarians is back. Yay! Hi, Julio. How are you going?
Hello. How's it going? I did not realize that that's why I was invited back. I thought that you invited me because this was a Garibaldi episode. Yeah, I love me some Garibaldi.
It's both.
Okay.
Well, we'll get into that. Of course. So tell us a bit about yourself, your podcast, and what's been your current relationship with Babylon 5? Because for people who haven't listened to the previous episode you're on, Believers, you are currently watching B5 for the first time. So tell us about yourself, your podcast, and where you're at with B5 currently.
Yeah, I'm not done with B5 yet, which means that I stopped listening to the current run of your show probably around the time that we did Believers. I think you told me that I needed to watch out because spoilers were coming at me. So one of my main goals, one of the carrots at the end of the stick when it comes to Babylon 5 is to know that I can finish the show and then just binge all the episodes of Yum Yum that I haven't listened to yet. So I am 5 or 6 episodes into season 4. So be mindful of what you say if you're going to be talking about season 4 or season 5.
There's one big spoiler that for the longtime fans know that we'll have to keep a lip buttoned on for this one. Let's just say there's one thing that we won't discuss while you're here. That's a biggie.
That specific episode?
A specific thing. We'll get that. Let's not distract Julio. Julio, keep going on.
Don't get my hopes up because I'm hoping that it has to do with Kefir.
Of course.
His eventual return.
Of course. Kefir returns from the dead to say, remember me, guys? Yeah, that's what happens.
So, you've had me here once before. And but in case of people missed it, I have a podcast of my own. I'm part of the Contrarians. My friend Alex and I talk about movies that are either super fresh or super rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, and we argue against their score. And we just kind of have fun that way. We try to be funny about it, and then on the second half of the show, we tell you how we really feel. So we haven't covered that much sci-fi, which is something I realized over the past year, which is not... I guess it just hasn't happened because I like the genre a lot. Clearly, as I am 4 seasons into Babylon 5. And, we've talked, you brought me over for an episode of Discovery as well. So I talked about how I also like Star Trek, mostly Next Gen. So I think And of course, I think that the main thing that has defined our relationship, at least when it comes to sci-fi, Ryan, and I guess by osmosis, Rachel, is that you guys absolutely hate the Doctor in Star Trek Discovery.
There's a Doctor in that show? I didn't realize. Is he a man of principles? Because there's a big speech in this episode about how Franklin has principles, and that's like a good character trait. I don't remember a Doctor character in Discovery with principles at all.
Life is life, whether it's wrapped in skin, scales, or feathers. Now, if you respected these beings instead of constantly trying to murder them, you'd appreciate that.
Julio, I can't remember if this was a rule we instated when you were here last, but we asked the question of who had YYE in this episode, Yum Yum Energy. Who in the episode would have said Yum Yum if this was written by the Star Trek Discovery writers? Do you have a candidate?
Oh, absolutely. Dodger.
Dodger!
Like, she pretty much says it.
Interesting.
You can read it in their eyes.
It's true.
Every time she looks at Garibaldi.
She's basically Nan.
The bald guy that keeps on picking fights is a contender as well.
Wow, I've got another candidate. Mine is Large.
Yeah.
Large has big YYE. He's got stogies. He just did a shit because this thing hit his belly, but he still loved it.
He ate too much.
This is what we call a diverse episode of Babylon 5, because
there's lots to dig into. It's a good start.
We are talking about GROPOS. So, Julio, you have the DVD description for this one. So could you enlighten us all on the episode?
Yes. Episode 10 of Season 2, GROPOS. The station is a neutral port of call in the Centauri-Narn War. So why has General Franklin, Paul Winfield, brought 25,000 infantry troops, GROPOS, or ground pounders, aboard for immediate billeting? That was a word I learned watching this episode.
It's a military show. It teaches you military phrases. There you go.
I don't think it's been more military than in this episode, at least up to this point.
Yeah.
In the series.
It's like, oh yeah, they have an army.
There's lots of war talk. Rachel, tell us your journey with GROPOS.
I adore this episode.
Yeah.
I love it to bits. Even the conversation that Garibaldi has with Dodger, where I cringe so hard that even on this viewing, I plugged my ears and covered my eyes because I'm like, no.
Can I ask you a sensitive question?
Yeah.
Does it make you dry? I can ask that. I'm her husband. I'm allowed. Don't write any fucking letters to me saying that I'm not allowed. I'm not going to hear it. Don't you send a carrier pigeon here. I'm going to shoot it down and eat it. Speckled Jim.
I'm not answering that.
So that's a yes.
No. You've asked me too many questions about my genitalia in the last few episodes, and I'm just not gonna reply.
Season 2's a horny season. It's a horny season. So you were saying you've loved this episode, you've adored this episode.
I like it more and more every time I watch it. Like the first time I was like, this is weird and like a little bit offbeat, but it still feels like it belongs in the show.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, different kind of feeling because it's not political in the same way that the other episodes have been in recent times.
Yeah.
And the way that it gets to explore the characters through them being pushed in a new direction, I really like. And there's lots of big moments and lots of small moments, and it's so juicy.
To follow upon some of the things that you just said there, I agree. I've liked this episode a lot. It's not one of my favorites, but I do like it. It follows up the big one, The Coming of Shadows, in which the Centauri-Narn conflict sparks off finally, and the Emperor visits, and that's the big one. The season's named after it. So this obviously gets overshadowed by that one's legacy and just general stature. But to touch upon what you said about this feels different, it works because that episode, The Coming of Shadows, is the turning point. We're now changing. And so the follow-up episode has the elements of Babylon 5 we like, the character stuff, the quiet, intimate moments, the funny moments, but also how our lead group of people have to problem solve and micromanage and figure out problems. But instead of putting it in the usual happy-go-lucky diplomatic sense like Season 1 and early Season 2, now it's been put through the lens of a war scenario.
Yeah.
Now we've got all these soldiers on board. We have to lie to Delenn, the ambassador, about this, and we have to lie to the actual soldiers about, and do all these things. And how do we put them here?
Like, oh yeah, they're not even going to talk to each other. Like, even in the episode, they take a moment to say, "No, that's not happening."
So
we're not hiding that from you. Nothing with that is going forward.
So I enjoyed this episode, and I enjoyed it on this watch to really note down how this is quietly telling us how the show is transitioning into something different than where we've been. So that's kind of been my relationship with it. Also, I like Dr. Franklin's stuff in this. I like the guest star performers. Dodger is a memorable character to me. Same with General Franklin, and even the bold asshole guy is one of those guys I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. And of course, it is one of the ones where I would say Season 2's littered with them as well. You remember the depressing thing in the episode where it's like everybody dies. That's also something that lingers. So that's where I'm at with this. Julio, tell us about what you've been like with GROPOS, and how did you feel when I said, "Oh, I want you on for this one"?
I did not remember that was the episode where Franklin's dad comes to visit, because to me, and I imagine to most people, just going by Rachel's brief recap, I think that most people probably think of this as the episode where Garibaldi absolutely blows it with a girl. It just, cringe is correctly, it's a correct word there. So when you said GROPOS, I was like, oh yeah, that's the one where Garibaldi overshares in a very cringy scene. So I was happy. I was like, oh, that's cool. Because, we did a Franklin episode, a very Franklin-centric episode last time I was here. So, and Garibaldi is one of my favorite characters. So I was down. And then I watched it today, and I'm like, oh, that's right. There's a whole lot more going on. It's just Franklin has a whole side plot. And, you kind of teased me about the fact that we were going to talk about Kefir. And I couldn't remember how much he was part of the episode. Yeah, he gets a couple scenes. I mean,
he gets 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets 3 scenes.
One is just
the beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. And so I don't think I wouldn't put it like in my top 10 episodes, I think, at least not right now. I tend to prefer, like if I were to make a list of my favorite Babylon 5 episodes, I think that I would probably go with the ones that hit me harder emotionally. And it's really sad here at the end when you see that they died, but it's almost like that was not surprising. I think that I felt that was going to come, like, even from the first time I watched it. I knew that was clearly, it's like the equivalent. This episode is equivalent of when you're in a war movie and you have the shot of the rookie that pulls out the picture of his wife and kid waiting for him at home, and you're like, okay, he's not gonna make it. And that's all the conversations that these characters, the GROPOS, were having with our regulars. You could tell that these are not relationships that are being set up to to go
it's
forward.
Like, you're making plans. So, your plan is to live.
Yeah. Well,
and that's enough.
Well, that's the thing too. In all fairness to the episode, to give it some credit outside of the kind of cliched nature of a war movie, war story thing like this, they also do make it pretty explicit that all of them realize at every single moment, even Franklin's dad, that they're going to die. Like this, death is a constant thing for a soldier, which is also why it kind of hits all the more, because it's the episode acknowledges this as well. It's not the typical, oh, I'm one day from retirement. Oh no, like it doesn't cheat you in that manipulative drama sense, but it also still tugs at that as well. But it's interesting to hear from Julio, because I think your a big Garibaldi fan, which is, I've said this to you privately, but I was surprised, and I think you're holding back from saying he's your favorite character because he's the one you always talk about, and it's so hilarious to me, and I'm curious what you think, Rachel, that Julio, you take this as, the Garibaldi episode. To me, it's so clearly the Franklin episode, and the Franklin stuff is, to me, the central thrust of the story here. Him and his dad,
what do you remember, though?
What's that, sorry?
When you think of GROPOS, what do you think of first?
I think of General Franklin.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
of course. Maybe because it's also Paul Winfield, but no, I think of the episode where we meet Franklin's dad, and he's like drastically different, but also not. And honestly, then I think of the Kefir stuff as, that's the one episode where they actually did something with Kefir.
Oh, okay.
Then I think about Dodger, and then I think about Garibaldi. That's how and then I think about how Sheridan is involved too, by the way. He's in this episode too. He's a good man.
He has important intelligence.
Yep, and they don't listen to him. So, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, okay, just to set the record straight, Garibaldi is my second favorite. Ivanova is my favorite, and so that's not me holding back from giving the crown to Garibaldi. It's just that Ivanova she's even cooler than he is. But I think that the thing that I've experienced, at least 4 seasons into the show, is that Garibaldi, I like him a lot, but he doesn't get as many interesting subplots as Ivanova does. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think that I keep bringing Garibaldi to the front. I celebrate every time that he gets something cool on the show because it doesn't happen as often as the other characters.
Like Grey 17 is missing. Remember that one?
God.
Where he fought a monster. Survivors, where he got drunk again, Uncle Mike.
Yep, exactly.
Drunk again, Uncle Mike.
This episode kicks off with Ivanova, and she is celebrating the fact that things are actually pretty chill.
It's the quiet time of night.
Things are chill because she's got her feet up. And every single time Ivanova puts her feet up in CNC, it's the prelude to something bad happening. The last time she did
know better by now.
I think the last time she did that, the president got assassinated. So I'm just saying, Ivanova, do not put your feet up because bad shit's going to come.
Maybe she's secretly hoping that it'll kill Clark somehow.
No. She's too naive. She's just chilling out. Corwin has an amazing line of dialogue in response to her where he says basically like time is a meaningless concept and death is inevitable. I'm like, whoa, Corwin. What the fuck, dude? And then the episode's like, no, we're moving. No, it's like, we don't even acknowledge that because General Franklin's here now. And this episode has a breakneck pace. It just keeps going bang, bang, bang through the plots and through the scenarios. So we meet Franklin's dad. And what was it like for you, Rachel, to engage with this plot that first time, to find out that Franklin's dad is this man? And how have you felt and how do you feel about the whole Franklin family drama?
I find it really weird because it's just like, I never thought about it. I never thought about the fact that he has a family because I'm just like, it's just Franklin. Mm-hmm. And I was never like, I wonder what he grew up like. It's like I didn't feel like that was a gap that I'd noticed.
So you didn't even think if he called his mum?
No, I didn't. But from here on out, I do. I wonder.
Yeah, did he call her about the Stims addiction? Before he went on his walkabout, he's like, hey, mum, I'm going on a walkabout.
No, when he came back from the walkabout.
Yeah, when he came back. Yeah. After he came back, he was just like, hey, I met myself. And I was a bit of a prick.
Yes.
So what do you think about, what did you think and what do you think about meeting the Franklin family member that we get, which is his prick father who's like a war guy? He's a general?
I'm like, yes. Because to me, it feels really true that somebody this concrete in their principles is a person who was raised in a very strict environment but also fought against those values and has found his own standing in the world. But that wasn't something that he was supported into. It's something that he fought for, and it makes me appreciate the way that the character is written and the way that he's performed, that desire to fight for what is right is to the core of Franklin.
I agree. I love the Franklin family drama, honestly. I love meeting his father, and to me it was very quick of understanding, oh yeah, this is where Franklin came from. It didn't need to take the whole episode for me to buy it. Once they actually met each other and had that conversation where they were being slightly friendly and then it quickly devolved into an argument, I've been there. I've seen family members get into that where they love each other and they get on, but there are certain things that just don't click, and eventually those things will clash. And there was a maturity there to that relationship. And although you said it, like you never thought about Franklin's history before, I did in watching the show, because he's talked about it briefly, his past with the war, him being a hitchhiker, and now here he is. And so he has talked about his past before, so I never necessarily thought who's his parents, but when it did come up, it added up. It went, oh, okay, because I've also known people in life who have grown up in very strict households and strict environments as well, who break free of that and they go down these paths. And some of them I do know are kind of like Franklin, where, they kind of had their, bumming around phase and doing all of that, but then they kind of find their avenue and they have those, like Franklin, those very strongly set convictions and principles that they learned from that strict environment, but they're applying it to something that is opposing that what the people from that environment like. Like Franklin's dad is like, cool, you're a doctor, but you should be saving human lives. And Franklin is all about life is life. It doesn't matter if you have scales, skin, or feathers. It's life. It's my job to save them. So I have always found this to be a fruitful side. And I also think since the Believers episode, the one where you had Julio on for last, this was the biggest and juiciest character episode for Dr. Franklin as a character. It was very insightful. It gave the actor a ton to do. It made me like him more over the years, because he was, for the most part, just in episodes as like, hello, I'm Dr. Man, and I'm here to do doctor things. And it was nice to see him get angry again and to have to bite his lip and actually maybe realize that he has to give something up.
He's trying to navigate the situation, being true to himself.
Yeah.
But also trying to move forward, because he recognizes that they can't just keep on butting heads. They're not going to get anywhere.
And it's a great parallel and showing us how he's furthered since Believers, in which he did not budge in that episode. Here, he's willing to budge. He's willing to say, hey, I'm sorry here. In this episode, he's willing to listen to other people. So I've always got a lot out of this one. Julio, what do you think about the whole Franklin-y side of this? And especially because you saw this episode, I think... Did you see this episode after we had recorded our Believers discussion? Or before?
Yeah, it's possible. That might have been it. Because I'm trying to remember if...
I think you actually watched it before, because you finished season 2 when you came on our show.
Had I? I don't remember. But yeah, I mean, I think that I had... I'm trying to think if I had any more emotional connections with Franklin in between Believers and this one. Because like you just said, there's a lot of Franklin, but there's not a lot of big emotional Franklin episodes, I think, in between these two that I can think of. Like the big moments are Believers, and then this one, and then... I'm thinking like
the healing machine one was in between.
Oh, the healing machine. Yeah.
But that was more about his convictions as, like, again, a professional. Like, I do not like your quackery type of deal.
Yeah.
And I'll get myself a date. So it's funny because watching it this time, I was something that I had forgotten was that his dad is not a complete monster. I mean, I don't like him personally. I think that the moment that he makes it clear that he doesn't care for the aliens, just like the bigotry of his position is just a little too much for me to go like, oh, well, this guy's cool. But I appreciated that the show didn't just double down on that and instead allowed him to still be somebody that somewhat managed to get along with his son. You know, because you could have demonized them a lot more.
Yeah, and it's just like he has these views, and that's a part of the disagreement.
Yeah.
But it doesn't become about that.
No, not necessarily.
It becomes about their relationship. Because it very easily could have gone for that level of drama about like, well, like my dad's a racist.
Yeah, it could have been my daddy's a military racist man. What it was actually about, there's many things it's about, but a part of it is the fact that you dedicate yourself to a job in which you could die, and we are living in the wake of he could be dead, and that's like really tough again. But one of the things that Julio just touched upon is like they could have demonized him easily. One of the little writing tricks I really like that demonstrates how they don't and how they will succeed, at least for me in the episode, of showing that General Franklin is willing to change and willing to give up something himself, like his son Franklin, is the trying out the alien juice. It's a little touch, but that little touch and him actually trying it and liking it
because his son actually does know his dad.
It's not the most groundbreaking thing, but it's like, okay, it's a little thing to show you that he is not just the prick father who's just a xenophobe. Like, it gives you a little thing of, you can shake his perspective. He isn't just set in stone. And that's a part of why he doesn't feel demonized, because even though we may not like him as a person, he feels real. That's the thing. Like, if he was the kumbaya general who's actually like, no, I'm actually cool with aliens, but somehow I'm the most respected general in Earth Force, you wouldn't believe that. That's something you wouldn't believe. You would like it because it would like, oh, Franklin's dad's nice because Franklin's nice. But no, that's not how it works. I like that little touch.
Here you go.
I'm on duty, Stephen.
No. This is fruit juice. The Morcab call it orcha. You'll like it. Go ahead.
No, I like orange juice.
Try it.
I mean, this is kind of I wouldn't call it a trope, but it's kind of a recognizable archetype, right? The overachieving son that wants to consciously or subconsciously is trying to impress the really tough dad. And so I could see like what kind of story they were going for even from the first time. And I was like, okay, let's see how it plays out. And I think that generally the dad is either completely unworthy of the efforts of the son, which is not the case here, because, you know, like I said, they seem to be trying at least to connect, or it turns out that the son had it wrong all along, which is also not the case here, because Franklin is actually, I mean, he has very valid reasons to resent his father.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see that this was just kind of like right there in the middle.
Yeah, it does something different.
One of the things here that is deliberately echoed in this episode and called out is his relationship with his father is a fraught one, but they still do love each other underneath it all. And that ties back to what happened with Ivanova and her father, in which they missed that opportunity to fix it before, you know, he was dying and dead. And it was great to have the Ivanova here to help Franklin along his journey, because that was the thing too about Believers. Sinclair and Franklin were opposed to one another, and that's why Franklin didn't budge, because they were opposed. In this, Ivanova is on his side, but she still opposes him as a friend, but like saying, I've gone through this, do not make the same mistake that I have gone through. And
she's trying to guide him.
Yeah, and it works because he understands and he garners from that this isn't going to just be a routine cake run thing. There's going to be a bigger deal. He needs to actually open this up because he does love his father. He does try. And I love my family, as do you, Rachel, and I imagine you, Julio, but there are those times in which, and there are those family members where you just have that like strained relationship, and sometimes you can fix it up, and sometimes you just go, I'm not going to bother. And that's where they were at. They were in the Ivanova stage where we talk occasionally, but we're not going to really bother because it's lost. There's that great conversation with
just the acceptance of we'll never be close.
Yeah.
Like, you're still my son, you're still my dad. We're not fully estranged, but the relationship is strained.
Yeah, and both of them have this mentality that is, maybe this is just the way it is between fathers and sons, which is why when Sheridan comes in and talks about his relationship with his father and how how it was similar,
that pushes
General Franklin to want to do it. Again, it's kind of cool how they're utilizing two of our main characters who aren't central to the episode, Ivanova and Sheridan, to help push the ones who are. They would have
discussed it like, ooh, you push him and I'll push him.
No.
And then we'll make everybody a happy family.
No. It's not as like that, but it is a great way of utilizing the ensemble.
Gentle. Like, in the hands of a different writer, that would feel contrived.
Yeah, but I don't know. I really like the complexities of this father-son relationship because, I don't know, it just, I keep having to say it, it feels real. It feels lived in. That's the thing too. Like, it's one of these things where it's like, oh, I personally don't have a military father, man, but I would understand why Franklin reacts to having a military father man the way he does, and I also understand why General Franklin would react to having a son like Franklin the way...
Is it fun fact time then?
Yeah, you got a fun fact for me? Do you have a military father man?
No, apparently Richard Biggs did.
Oh, the actor of Franklin?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Dad, was, I think, a colonel in the Vietnam War.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that was part of what they drew on for this idea. And apparently Biggs did manage to patch up his relationship with his dad as well.
Oh, there you go. That's a cool piece of information. So, Julio.
Now, do you think, because this struck me as the episode started, is Franklin a last name that's rare in the future?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Because Sheridan makes a hell of an assumption when this general comes in and he's like, oh, General Franklin, we have a Franklin here. Is he your son? And I was like, that's really weird.
Well, in all fairness, there's some other clues.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't want to call him a racist, but...
There are context clues.
No, I think...
Like, he looks old enough to be his dad.
I do think that...
you're not going to call...
Sheridan says, like, oh, any relation.
Yeah.
And then the general clarifies that it's his son. What, Sheridan isn't like, your baby?
You know what? You're not going to call out the general for doing the same to Garibaldi? He's like, I knew an Alfredo Garibaldi. Hell of soldier.
That one's a little... Garibaldi, I think, it's a little more unusual than Franklin.
Not if you're Italian.
Fair enough.
No, it's a fair call to make. It's one of those ones where you need it for the script to happen. Or else...
it's just like, we don't... Like, time is not needed on this thing.
And real question. You've now watched enough of the show. Out of all of our characters, who's the one dumb enough to ask that question point blank? It's Sheridan. and then you would have patted him on the back and said, hey, did you bring oranges with you?
Well, he likes orange juice.
Did you bring juice?
Honestly, Zach was not around in season 2.
Well, technically, Zach was in the show at this point, but he only been in 1 or 2 episodes.
We get our last little bit of Lou.
That's the sad news. Everybody,
I know.
This is the last episode with Lou Welch.
Is it officially?
The actor did not want to be typecast, and he left the show. Lou, we love you. We miss you. We wish you were here, but you helped.
We know that you're loving some cake wherever you are, Lou.
He gets some stuff in the books, apparently. Lou gets a story in one of the books, but he was the proto Zach Allen. So
yes, he was.
We miss you, Lou. We love you. We love Lou. We all love Lou. And good night, sweet prince. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say about Lou.
Okay, Garibaldi to Welch. Hey, Lou, how's it going out there?
Oh, everything's nice and quiet here, Chief. Looks like everyone's going to bed.
I love the way that Sheridan's line, like when he's explaining that, like, you know, killing is a part of a soldier's job. And like, you can't deny that as part of the job, but we can only live with it and hope that the reasons we're doing it are justified. And that last sentence applies equally to Franklin and his job.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
It was great.
And I just find that really neat.
It was interesting too that scene took a little pause to have the writers acknowledge that, hey, isn't our main character kind of a war criminal? He murdered a whole ship of people. And
Minbaris might call me one.
And Sheridan kind of brushes it off like, oh, well, the Minbaris may call me that, but I don't think myself that. And it's like, no, interesting.
He wouldn't be able to live with himself if he did.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I'm sure he won't commit any more war crimes in the future.
What do you think, Julio?
Yeah. I'm sure he's going to be a good boy.
He lives up to his reputation going forward. But I mentioned it the last time I was here on the other Franklin episode, and I think it's worth bringing up again because this is still fairly soon after Sinclair has left his station. So as soon as I saw Sheridan interacting with Franklin's father, I'm like, yeah, these are two military guys. Like Sheridan is very military. And I'm like, how would Sinclair have reacted to this? And I think that he would have, I mean, I'm not saying that he would have rejected any of the things that were happening. I mean, he was still going to follow orders, but I think that he would have been less, I don't want to say eager to please than Sheridan, but, like Sheridan was just very much like, all right, yes, sir, whatever you say. And I think that we would have seen Sinclair be a little more dissatisfied with the whole thing.
Yeah, he wouldn't have fallen in line as neatly.
He would have been a lot more tired.
Of course.
That's the difference. Sheridan's like, I've had a perfect night's rest. La 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 la. Orange juice. And Sheridan's and Sinclair would be like, I have not
so great
slept
that
in
I don't
15
have
hours.
I don't have to pay rent. Yes.
Yeah, and Sinclair would be like, I'm looking through these loopholes to figure out what the hell I can do. Michael, you're my best friend. Help me. What do you think about how this episode represents the military, Julio?
It's a little bit like what we're saying about the archetype of the son and the father that are at odds because the father's very demanding and the son feels like he needs to prove himself. Kind of like the same thing. I mean, I think that when you think of portrayals of the military in the media, this is one of those that you can go to, right? Like the very disciplined in a way, Marine soldiers, what have you, but then they're also rowdy on their downtime.
Yeah.
And,
if they're on, they're on. If they're off, they're off.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And they may be, they might fight each other, but then at the end, they're all a big family. And so they're, when it's time to get the job done, they're going to get the job done. And, yeah, I mean, it is. It rang true in the way that it rings true in this universe. I liked that Garibaldi seemed to have like a pretty good understanding of what they were getting into when all these troops arrived and took over Babylon 5.
Because he was a crown pounder in the Mbryo War himself, Garibaldi. So it makes sense.
So he was like, I know what to expect. Like. In classic Garibaldi fashion, it was like, it doesn't matter what we do, it's gonna be a mess.
Yep.
cynical Garibaldi.
Yeah.
I like how unflattering yet also like is in ways like, for instance, so what I mean is
has a lot of manner of fact or like matter of fact.
It has as most people do. It has a kind of warmth and kind of appreciation for the troops themselves, the men on the ground, the boots, but the higher ups and the general reasonings for why these boots on the ground have to do the things they do. It has a cynicism and disdain for the fact that all of these people die for this planet and for this race that we know nothing about. Like, they're insignificant because Earth wants to have a foothold because in the future they may need it for a war that they may get dragged into.
They know that they're gonna have to get involved at some stage. They don't know which side they're gonna be on.
And, as just a general civilian myself, there is that complexity of it's like, oh, well, respect the troops, they're people, they're doing the hard thing, they're out there, but also it's like, I don't like the military, I don't want to be a part of it, I don't like the fact that the US put their troops and they do these insidious things here, because they're playing this 4D chess in which we may need to do this over here and this over here, and that's what this is. There is that level of honesty and it's honesty and an unflattering look. Like, there's this thing too where it's like, oh, we always worry that you're gonna die, Dad. But it's like, why? He's the general who gets to sit at the back and then come in and get on the news and say, like, yeah, we did a great job.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like this episode of it humanizes.
Before I forget, because that made me laugh so hard when he's at the end. Gerald Franklin is at the end of the interview, and then some guy comes over and whispers something in his ear, and then he just goes, "I gotta go.
I'm needed elsewhere."
Yeah. And I think it's the same.
It's the
sergeant intendant.
Yeah, the drill sergeant-y guy who's always yelling at them for causing fights.
And he has a bandage over his head.
Everyone we meet outside of General Franklin in the GROPOS gets injured or killed.
Yes.
That's the thing too. Like, Franklin's dad's the only one who's fine.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? But that's what I mean. Like, it's this unflattering, but also kind of like, we're going to humanize the GROPOS themselves. We're going to show that there are shitty ones. We're going to show that there are seasoned ones who are good and nice people. They know what they are. They know what they're going to do. We're going to have Dodger give us this really harrowing look into, like, I don't have time for love. These are going to be these humanizing things, but when push comes to shove, you look at it and it's like all these people who had hopes, dreams, desires, personhood, they all got massacred. For what? For what?
Yeah.
Because Earth has an agenda. They want to do these things. And even Sheridan is opposed. The fact that Sheridan is opposed to this in the first place, like, he doesn't think it's worth doing this.
Yeah, and he continues to advise against it.
Further hammering in this kind of agenda that that Babylon 5 has of, like, look, the military is good, but to a certain point, you have to question, like, the legitimacy of militarization and putting all of these things forward like this.
Also, specifically, Sheridan's statement about, I don't trust organizations, I trust people. And we get to see that and feel that in this episode.
Yeah.
Because we trust Dodger. And we trust Dodger's gut when she says, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
Not just because we know that shit's going to go down, but because we're like, you got this.
Yeah, she's got wisdom that we've come to expect and understand in the episode, so we buy it. And another thing that I really like too is I think it was an amazing touch to show us all the dead bodies and show us that the war, the battles, the violence, it doesn't discriminate. It's going to take the young guy who's fresh off the boat. It's going to take the old experienced one. It's going to take Dodger. It's even going to take the prick asshole bald guy. Like, the killing doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care that these were good people or these were bad people or these were new. It doesn't matter. They're dead. And what was it all for? So that Franklin's dad can stand in front of the smoldering wreckage and go, yeah, we did a good job. And he's the only one that's fine.
I'm here with General Richard Franklin, commander of the 356th. General, can you tell us the results of the battle?
Our troops have gained control over the fortress at Matak. Most of the leaders of the rebellion have either been killed or captured, and we expect the complete surrender of all the rebel forces very shortly.
The thing that jumped at me when I was watching the episode this time is that, in a way, the show kind of proves General Franklin right about militarizing Babylon 5 a little bit, because when he says that, oh, we're going to upgrade your weapons and you're going to be able to just fight a destroyer and everything, and Sheridan and Ivanova are like, oh, well, this is supposed to be a nice place. We're not supposed to be right.
And Delenn echoes that as well.
Yeah.
Right. But knowing what happens in subsequent seasons, it's kind of a good thing that they had.
It's very handy.
But that's
yes, exactly.
But that's the thing, like, because of the strongly held attitudes that characters like General Franklin have, Londo, Jakar, the Earth government have, it is a part of the reason why the Babylon Project fails.
Yeah.
Because peace was never an option. And you wish that it could be, because
how long were you planning that line?
I wasn't. But like, it reminds you of, like, remember the good old days of season 1 where Sinclair had that optimism that we could do it?
Yeah.
We're
and it
showing
was like
people all the different religions in the planet.
Yeah, but like, that's the thing too of, you're right. The show proves that Franklin's dad was right, but how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel good?
Oh no, it's a bummer. But that's the thing. Like, it's not that Franklin's right. Franklin's dad is right because of something he ends up doing. It's like the shadows were going to attack whether Franklin's dad did anything or not. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that, oh, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was like, oh, we're going to need these weapons, and then I'm going to go create the situation that makes us need them. It was like, no, Earth was going to be attacked, and Babylon 5 was going to be attacked no matter what. So, yeah, it kind of sucks that the show is set in a world where, like ours.
Exactly.
You just can't avoid the conflict.
Yeah.
And so he is not even... So there is a grim wisdom, I think, to his thinking anyway, to General Franklin's thinking of, like, knowing the world that they live in a way probably better, or looking at it through more realistic lenses than Ivanova and Sheridan and Garibaldi.
Yeah, but even then, Ivanova, Sheridan, and Garibaldi also understand that, but they just wish that it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
They can voice their concerns, but at the end, they salute and obey, because this is how it is. This is how it's got to be.
Yes.
And they're all there watching the TV, hoping that the Earth people won a war that they should not be a part of. Again, it makes me think of the real world. Sadly, we don't live in the Star Trek Utopia world. We live in the nightmare world. We live in the Babylon 5's nightmare world. Is it a little bit too close to home, huh?
Yeah, it's not nice.
No, it isn't nice.
It's not nice.
One of the fun trivia facts that I have, one of the things I noted down, when I say fun, it's also depressing, is the alien juice that Franklin dad tries is a Marcab juice, who are the alien race that gets killed by that plague later in this season.
Oh,
so,
no.
They're set up throughout the series.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Marcabs.
Mentioned.
They're mentioned a lot. And it's like, oh no. On a rewatch value, I look at that and go, oh no, I like it. Those guys are going to all die. They're all going to die. And there's their juice that Franklin likes, but they're all going to be dead in like 10 episodes. So we always keep bringing Julio on for the fun episodes in which people die brutally. Characters are left at the end of the episode with this real harrowed, sad expression on their face.
Yeah.
But hey, Garibaldi almost got laid. That's a little bit happier.
He gets to make out a lot.
He gets to make out a lot. How do you feel about that, Julio?
It was pretty awkward to watch. Not the making out, but just like what it led to.
Well, do you want to talk to us?
Hey, they made out after that as well.
Yeah.
That was just like a final.
And the drill sergeant guy, he gave him the nod. He gave him a like.
And it was a nod of.
You did it.
Yeah, but now fuck off.
But then after he fucked off, he gave himself a little chuckle like, that was funny.
Yep.
Awesome. Again, a humanizing moment for a character you could describe as a non-character. I don't know anything about that guy other than he has like a weird name. He's like Sergeant like Budge or something weird. But Julio, talk to us about the Garibaldi side of this, since this is the thing that's lingered with you. Tell us about what's going on here, and what do you think about it?
I like how smooth he is before they become romantically involved, him and Dodger. You know what I mean? Like his first interaction with her, because he's not trying to hook up with her. So he's just being pretty... Yeah, he's pretty laid back. He doesn't even show a hint of the baggage that he's carrying. He's just, making jokes and being just pretty smooth overall. And then it's just, I think that if I was younger, I wouldn't believe how badly he botches it. But
did you buy the chemistry between them?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I bought it. Like I was very.
That's his ex-girlfriend.
Really?
Actor?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Jerry Doyle used to date her.
Andrea Thompson, who plays Talia, must have been super proud because she was becoming his ex-wife at the time.
No. 95 was when they got married. 97 is when they got divorced.
Oh, fuck
so it was his girlfriend at the time, and they unknowingly hired his ex-girlfriend to play Dodger.
Oh.
And in the original script, they slept together. He didn't botch it.
No.
JMS changed it.
No.
It was meant to be that Ivanova knocked on his door to wake him up, and he opens the door in Duck Dodger's boxes.
No. This change. You know what's so funny? I mean this sincerely.
This is all according to information from the extras and
I didn't know this.
The extra information and the cast interviews and stuff like this. This is where this information is coming from.
This changes everything, because I was actually going to say this is not written by JMS primarily. No. This is written by Larry DiTillio. But what I was going to say was
Larry DiTillio hated that was changed.
Yeah, I can understand. What I was going to say was, Julio was mentioning younger, you would feel like this is really weird. I did when I was a teenager. I was like, come on, Garibaldi, get your dick wet, you pussy. What's wrong with you? You Mr. Stalk Talia in the tubes and look at her ass. What are you, a fucking coward? But now as an adult who's a wiser and understands life a bit more, I nodded this going,
oh yeah, you got into your head too much.
Yeah,
and you couldn't get out.
Hearing that's a JMS written thing, it all adds up because he writes that a lot, like Marcus being a virgin and stuff like that. And it's just okay, this all adds up. Mm-hmm. This all makes sense as a JMS thing. But I actually really like this scene. Rachel, it makes you cringe. Julio, I imagine it makes you cringe. You've already kind of mentioned that. But not in a bad way. Yeah, not in a bad way. But it does make you cringe.
I like it. I'm glad. For what it's worth, I like the rewrite. I like that they don't sleep together, because I think it's more memorable that he has that meltdown and then she blows up at him.
Yeah, he misses it. I really like it because it's a vulnerable moment for Garibaldi, who is a vulnerable character a lot, but I haven't really liked up until this point the way the show has written his vulnerabilities, like the drunk again Uncle Mike I found was a sloppy episode. While this, I get it. I get where you're coming from, Garibaldi, and I also find it good to see in a piece of media now, unlike when I was a teenage boy, to have a guy actually put on the brakes and say, hey, we're going too fast here. I want to actually think things through, not just thinking with his dick, which is also greatly appreciated after having watched that episode where Dr. Franklin was a creep to that woman who just woke up from cryo sleep and he wanted to fuck her. It's greatly appreciated to have this kind of maturity here. But
yes.
It's I don't know.
But the part that's cringy is that the oversharing. But I get it. There are times where it doesn't even have to be a romantic situation. There are times where you just start talking and you just can't stop yourself, because poor Dodger didn't need to know about the girl from Mars. Didn't need to know about the fact that he got shot in the back. I mean,
or Talia.
That was just Talia. Yeah, it's just way too much details. You could just say, I can't. I have too much going on. And then she would just go, oh, I get it. But he piles it on to the point where, she ends up being exasperated, and her blow up is perfectly understandable. His makes me cringe, and hers just makes me go, I wish it worked out.
Yeah.
Should have gone look for Franklin, because clearly Franklin has no problem hooking up with people.
Look, there was this woman on Mars, Lise. We'd been a couple, and I did something stupid and blew it. And next thing I know, she's married to somebody else, and she's having a baby. Man, it hit me hard. Then I met this other lady, the kind of guy like me doesn't stand a chance with. And on New Year's Eve, I got shot. I almost died because I wasn't watching my back.
Watch your back.
He's oversharing, as you say, but it also, you buy it because that's Garibaldi. He's a blabbermouth, and he kind of, once he gets worked up emotionally, he just pours it out all over the place. That's his
He can't
flaw.
stop himself.
Yeah.
And we see that in cringy moments like this, and serious moments.
Sweet moments.
Sweet moments and funny moments.
Antagonistic moments. I mean,
fasten then zip, zip then fasten.
Exactly. And Julio's just started up season 4, and Garibaldi's like that currently in an antagonistic sense, in which he can't help but want to share what's in his head all the time. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. And when it happens here, you just buy it. If it was another character, if this was a Voniver, I wouldn't buy it.
No.
Right? And so it's just like, okay, cool. Garibaldi, you buy it on a narrative sense. But I think what saves it is the Dodger reaction to it. One, the acting from her is fantastic. If you just watch the scene on mute and just watch her reaction when it starts, she crosses her arms, she's like looking around.
She's so done. She's like, I just wanted to get fucked and move on.
She sells the, what's happening right now? Oh, God. Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck this.
And the anger and the fact that she feels like she's being lectured to. That's another thing I really like. There's this indignant rage within her of like, what did you think this was, man? Like, I wasn't here to have a relationship. What the fuck are you, idiot? You're lecturing to me, and now you're going to be condescending and pity me? Fuck you. She's got this justifiable rage within the moment, but again, like a lot of the characters, she cools down, they come to understanding, and they patch things up.
And I really love the phrase that she uses of like, sometimes I just want things too much.
Yeah, I found it really harrowing when she is talking about like, when I'm not up to my hip in blood and worrying about dying and whatever, this is all I can have, because this is all I have time for. Like, she doesn't have time for romance and love and connections, because that's not the life she lives.
No.
This is all she has, and that's good enough.
And the Gropo life is what she's chosen to do.
Yeah.
She's stuck it out.
But to give the actress even more credit as well, she really brings the life to the character, especially when she gives the kiss at the end and the little moments like the nice butt moment and everything like that, where she doesn't just feel like the, like we see in these war movies and soldier movies, the token butch, emotionless, soldier lady. Like, she still has her femininity and her charm and her humor. Like, I wouldn't define Dodger as just the military lady in that one episode. No. You know, like,
she gets to be more.
Yeah, like, again, to tie back to Garibaldi, Survivors, Major Kemmer, the woman who hated Garibaldi because of an incident in her past. That's how I describe her. Military lady who was bitchy lady with no... Dodger has more layers to her than that. She has more nuances. That's the thing about what I really like about Gropos, is all the characters, even fucking Warren Keffer, they don't need all the scenes in the episode to give nuances, layers, and arcs and developments.
Yeah.
They're all given enough in which I'm satisfied when I finish the episode and it reaches its sad conclusion.
And it doesn't work for lots of people. Like, lots of people don't like this episode. And plenty don't like it as much as we do.
Yeah.
But it really works for us.
Yeah. It is one of those that just kind of hits the right chord with me. This is in the period of the show in which there was more writers. It wasn't just JMS. Julio, you're in season 4. Season 3 onwards, it's just JMS who writes the show. He just writes every single episode. And so there's more of a consistency there. of voice and everything. Here, this is written by Larry DiTillio, who's one of the other primary writers. And I gotta say, like, this is probably my favorite script of his thus far. And
apparently it is also his favorite that he did for B5.
Because I was going to say, this one really feels like it's a JMS script because of the tonal juggling acts. Because when you watch a Babylon 5 episode, especially in the height of Season 3, Season 4, it can have major tonal shifts that in other shows, in other scripts, in other writers' hands, would drastically fail or be very jarring. Like, you can go from an extremely sad moment to an extremely funny moment in one episode, and JMS is really good at that. But I gotta say, like, Larry, he really picked up his game in this one. Like, I found the tonal shifts of this to be quite exciting, actually.
Skillfully done.
What do you think about that, Julio? You're watching B5. What do you think about how it does the tonal juggling acts in episodes and in episodes like this?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely, it's something that you as a viewer, we were talking about Londo. I don't remember if we had already started recording or not, but I think that Londo is a good example because I had trouble, I think, getting used to how broad Londo was at first. But it's not like he ever stopped being broad, but it's more that, one, I got used to the character and how he was, and also I think the show got better at integrating his personality with everything else that was happening in the station, and I think that applies on a macro level to just all the other big elements, and also the tonal shifts, and the comedy can be really broad sometimes, and then you get really serious moments. I think it's telling though that in this episode we don't have Londo, we don't have Jakar, we don't have Veer. It's weird when they think that there's too much. The people that say there's too much going on in this episode, it's actually, I think this is very focused because it's just all in the service of the GROPOS. There's not any other subplots going on, and so in that sense, I think this one's actually even more controlled than your standard Babylon 5 episode. And going forward, yeah, I know watching an episode, unless it's something that's super dark, I know that there's gonna be a couple of moments where I'm just gonna laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of people seem to not like the moment with Delenn.
I like it because it just lets you know that people from Earth really don't appreciate that she's like a weird hybrid.
Yeah.
And that's going to be important.
Barry don't have hair.
Yeah, that was great.
Speaking as a man,
I did think though that she probably could have. I don't think she needed rescuing, but we didn't get to see the scene play out because Dodger stepped in. But
yeah, Linnea wasn't there to do kung fu. So,
but I've seen her fight.
Even though,
I mean,
like,
she's
Delenn went through Temple as well, so that means that she should have some moves herself.
She just learned how to brush her hair. Give her a break. Yeah,
And
okay.
a lot of people-
that's a good rationalization. She's not used to this body.
Is there something you want?
What are you?
I am a Minbari. Now please let me pass.
Minbari, huh? Minbari don't have hair. This is human hair.
Go!
We got him here. Kef's here. Kef is here. Everybody.
He actually
Keffa.
does something.
Kef is here. Julio's favorite character. You lied. Your favorite character is actually Kefa. Huh?
Well, there's not even a competition. I mean, he's not even in the rankings because he's just outside of everything.
Yeah, he's God tier. You're right. Yeah. He's above the tier list.
In terms of YYE, maybe, but
no. Julio, he's here. Kefa. Tell us about what it was like watching the series, seeing Kefa in there. What was your thing with Kef?
Well, we had that conversation on Twitter at some point where it came up that, you know, he was a new character. He's in the credits, and usually you expect that there's a purpose to a new character being added, like Marcus. Marcus is added in the third season. He becomes part of the opening credits, and you can see why. I mean, he's a recurring character. He shows up. He has stories that are about him. He serves a purpose in the narrative and all that. And with Kefir, that's not really what happens.
You're
saying Kefa doesn't?
Are you saying Kefa doesn't have a character?
What?
Doesn't have arcs?
He helps find the shadow ships.
He does. I mean, eventually,
he
has a purpose.
That's worth being in the opening credits.
He kind of falls backwards into a purpose at the very end of the season.
Yeah, it's like, oh wait, we can use him for that.
Yeah.
He's about to be thrown out, but we can use him for this.
I think by the time I watched this episode, though, I think by the time I watched this episode, I had already talked to you, Ryan, about the character, and you had told me that it was just somebody that had been created mainly to placate like a mandate from above and not something that JMS wanted to do. So at some point I kind of gave up on the idea of waiting to see what was going to happen with this character and just took it as like, all right, well, he's there because they had to put him there. And when this episode happened, I remember just watching it through the same lens, which is that it's not, he's there, I guess, to add like a dash of color because you need like to have a pilot that you focus on, I guess. But I don't remember taking anything that was happening with him seriously. And so when he gets
he's an
the
air
big
boy.
moment at the,
He's an air boy.
yeah, air boy. He gets his big moment at the end. I mean, not big, but he gets a shot where he looks at the iPad, whatever it is they hand him, and he realizes that his friends are dead.
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty cool.
It lingers on him. He's the last one there.
Yeah.
Like Garibaldi passes the grief over to him, and that was good. I mean, that was his character actually served a purpose because it goes even beyond. Oh well, Garibaldi had a connection with this one girl, but then Kefir, I mean, he's more of a, for all his flaws and his lack of purpose and all that, he is more of a ground level character than all the other people in the cast. So it's one thing, I think, to see, oh, Garibaldi's girlfriend died versus seeing, oh, all these guys that were hanging out, all the other regular Joes that were hanging out with the regular Joe of Babylon 5, they're all dead as well. So yeah, I like what they did with him.
I like Kefir in the episode.
Yeah, I think it's his best moment.
It's his best episode. It's the only episode where you could almost see why he would be a character if the creators wanted him to be one.
It makes no sense that he gets 2 roomies because he's a squadron commander.
Yeah, he should get 3. You're right. No, but I seriously mean it. I think the actor does a great job here. I actually like the characterization of Kefir being like this kind of stick in the mud snooty guy who has to warm up and get out of that shell, and then he becomes like one of the crew. And I really appreciate the bar fight scene in which he tries to be a nice guy. He's like, hey, I apologize, but if that's not enough, I'll fucking fight you. And I'm like,
and then the fact that he's so pleased with himself and then gets hit over the back of the head.
But here's the thing,
and Lad just looks like, oh fuck no,
because he was honorable. That's the thing about Kefir. He's honorable. And you know how he got taken out by that fight? By a dishonorable Gropo who hit him in the back of the head with a bottle, which is a dog act. That's, that's a dog act. And that guy got punched the fuck out by Large. But I actually really appreciated the performance
scarf
here.
Gets loose.
He gets loose and frayed. But no, I actually really like the performance here. And I like the idea of what his character could have been that was presented here, because he's been presented with no character up until now. He's just guy who is there. Here, he is given a wrinkle of a character, which is better than nothing, but he was kind of comedic. I found him a little bit charming at points, and I also like the 3 of them. You have the most experienced, you have the one who's new, and then Kefir, even though he's not a ground pounder, he's in between. He's had some experience in fights and stuff, but he hasn't had Large's experience level.
No.
But so it felt like when he was slotted in that group, he felt welcomed there, because it was the progression level of the guy who's never had any, the one who's had some, and the one who's had the most.
Yes.
And so he worked on that front, but also, like we were talking about, he's a ground level character. I don't think I could imagine any of our other human characters being given this storyline realistically. I don't imagine Ivanova having this.
Oh, it would make zero fucking sense if Ivanova
or
got stuck
Sheridan. right? And Zach doesn't exist yet properly as a character. And I don't know.
And it wouldn't make sense for Lou.
No, Lou's too cool. He's too busy being a guard. But like,
They might eat his cake. That's not acceptable.
he's a bro. He's like, yeah, Garibaldi, I'll let you off duty to go fuck.
Yep.
Wingman.
Wink, wink. He's a bro.
Wingman supreme.
He follows the bro code. That's Lou's law. Lou's law. Bro code edition. Rachel, what about you? The Kef dog, you knew that he was this unnecessary blight. Were you surprised that he actually got given something to do? Because this is the first episode where he's given something.
I was, and it still didn't feel like much on the first.
It's 3 scenes.
It's not a lot. It's not enough to redeem Kefir for me. But like on subsequent watches, it's like, even though it is a tiny drop in the desert, I appreciate it more kind of each time because I'm like, oh, it was something.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a complete and utter waste of fucking time and money,
Yeah.
but it's not great.
Yeah. But Rachel, you have a shocking revelation. You told me this before we recorded, and I staggered back because I've never heard this before.
No.
But it makes so much sense. What is the information you've found out about the Kefir side of this story?
This is another little tidbit that is apparently in the Echoes of Highlights, which is like got interviews and notes from various crew members. Apparently, Larry volunteered to use Kefir.
Yeah, Larry D'Attilio, the writer, he volunteered. He was like, I want to do it.
I want to give Kefir something.
Because that was Larry's role. He was like, I'll do Talia stories because no one's doing it. And,
I'll do a
these.
Voniver
I'll do an
stuff.
Voniver story. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll do a Walker Smith story. Yeah.
I bring a Voniver into this episode. But apparently they were not impressed by the actor.
Yeah.
And because he didn't bring it enough, that was even more of a reason that they were like, nah, we're not going to bother with this again.
So they whittled him down in the script. They're just like, we weren't impressed with Kefir, so we just kind of whittled him down in this episode where I was going to try with him. And it makes sense. So it feels like there's a scene or two missing of Kef. And maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but there's this sense of no one was impressed with this actor. I wasn't unimpressed. I was just like, this guy has nothing to work with. In this episode, I actually thought he was good. I didn't mind him, but evidently they did not think he was good enough.
Apparently he didn't prove his worth.
You're always scared. That's part of the job. But you're gonna do okay.
That's right, man, that's right. Like old Buffy used to say, any gropo who ain't scared is either dead or stupid.
Are we ready for the spotlight section of the show? Are we ready to touch that? Are we ready to flick the switch and talk about an actor that was in the episode?
I'm ready. Are you ready, Julio?
I am. I did my homework earlier.
Ooh.
I'm ready.
Julio sat down and wrote, who was Paul Winfield in Wrath of Khan? Oh,
Yes.
The only black character? Oh, okay.
So do we want to talk histories or performance first?
I think performance is a good place to start. We've already kind of touched upon his performance, but Julio, what did you think of Paul Winfield in this? And when you watched it, did you recognize? Did you go, oh, hey, it's Paul Winfield?
No. Oh, no. It wasn't until I looked at his filmography that I went like, oh, the Terminator guy. Okay, now I know what. But no, I like him. He has an awesome voice. I think that's the main thing that stands out when I see Franklin's dad. It's just that the way that he talks.
Would it
I
shock
don't remember
you to learn that James Earl Jones was their first pick for this role?
Oh, he could pull it off.
Oh
Absolutely.
my God. Isn't that how his career was? Like we could get Paul Winfield or James Earl Jones.
There's
That's how it goes.
there's a James Earl Jones related fact that I have to share later.
Fair enough. So you were saying, Julio, you love his voice. He does have a very distinguished voice, very mannered speaking voice.
I don't remember feeling that way about him in Terminator, though. Like, I remember liking him in Terminator, but I remember the voice standing out, and here it did. So that was cool. I think he's really good. He plays the tough soldier character really well, and when the few moments that he gets to be vulnerable, he's on point. So yeah, I really liked him. And and then I looked through his filmography, and I've seen several movies that he's been in, but the one that I remember where I can tell you exactly like who he is and what he did is Terminator.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. And there's another one, but I'll bring it up later.
Mars Attacks, yeah.
Yes, Mars Attacks, exactly.
That's what I think of him as. We'll get to Mars Attacks, but I
think of Wrath of Khan.
Well, Darmok and Jalad, we'll just say that. But no, I love his performance here. For me, what's distinguishable about him is his eyes. He has these very distinct kind of piercing, kind of a little bit buggy out eyes. And that's what I always notice him as an actor. Like when he's in prosthetic makeup, when he's wearing something, like I always can tell him through his eyes and also his voice. He does have a very...
I got distracted by the glasses and the way that they were like...
Well,
magnifying his eyes.
Well, I've also seen him in roles. Well, in both Terminator and Mars Attacks, he wears glasses. I'm also used to him wearing glasses as well, so that wasn't a distraction for me. But I love his performance here. He really sells you that he's a hard-ass military guy who can just bark an order at you like that. I feel like it was unneeded, the little riding crop that he was carrying around. I don't think they needed to give him that touch. I think he, as an actor, was good enough with his... what I've noticed too, we recently watched Terminator, Rachel and I, we just watched it. And in that movie and in this episode, Paul Winfield, you give him glasses, he's going to play with those. He's just going to use those to do things and like clean them and point with them and fiddle with them. That's his character mainly in Terminator 2, is he has 3 props. Glasses, a cup of coffee, and cigarettes. That's what you need for Paul Winfield, and he's good to go. In this, he had glasses. So he was using those motherfuckers like a bad boy, and he was just ping-ponging around. But I found him very, I believed him as a father figure as well as a general. I really like his energy. I've always thought that he was one of the standout guest stars in season 2 because he also, we talked about this recently, you can tell he's a movie star. There's something about his caliber of performance and his presence where you go, this guy just isn't a TV guy. He's more than a TV guy.
He did a mix of movies, TV, voice acting, and some TV films as well.
Yeah. So what about you, Rachel? What do you think of General Franklin? Because he also has to sell us that he is related to Franklin.
Yeah.
That's also something we have to appreciate.
I never question it.
No.
It that's how the performance works for me. I never questioned that this is his dad and that they have this kind of relationship. I'm like, yeah, you're this kind of dude and you are a bit of a dickhead. And
so is your son.
You are mostly right.
Just like your son.
Just like your son. Like the such for genetics line that he has.
I love that he absolutely ripped Garibaldi a new one for no reason.
No, it's because
Garibaldi was being insolent.
Yeah, Garibaldi being insolent as they walked in, and the generals looks like, I'm not fucking having that.
Well, I like how he played it too, where he said in a very nonchalant, casual manner, but with also this authority, oh, that's an interesting point of view. When he's like, Earth government, crazy. Oh, that's an interesting point of view, which is not something you want to hear.
No.
After having talk smack.
Yeah, it's like, oh, fuck, I got caught. And I love...
You must have that all the time as a teacher.
I love Ivanov's reaction of...
Oh, she
like,
laughs.
She laughs, and then she's just like, oh,
I can't. I'm going to be a soldier lady. I've got to keep it together.
I shouldn't be fighting this. So funny.
Yeah.
But you just know that she's like kind of laughing in her head as the scene continues, which is great.
I want to also praise that we talk about General Franklin as like, this arsehole-ish figure, but Paul Winfield can really turn on the warmth and the levity moments too. Like
when he's talking
chuckles,
about his family.
Oh yeah,
there's so much warmth and love that comes through.
Paul Winfield's smile and laugh is very infectious in the episode. We only see it minorly, but when it does happen, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's a guy. He's not just the uniform. He's not just he's the brass that's come in to swing his dick over the place. Like, he's a guy. He's chuckling.
Not Ari Benzane.
He's not Ari Benzane, the greatest character with a scar on his eye. No. But he's a legend. He was a legend. Unfortunately, Paul Winfield's no longer with us. He passed away. I can't remember when he passed away, but he passed away a little while back now.
In the 2000s, I think.
But he's an acting legend. He was in Terminator, the big one. He was in lots of iconic things and B-grade things. He did a whole plethora. Terminator, of course, he was one of the policemen, one of the detectives in that with Lance Henriksen. He was paired with him. So you may, Julio, not remember his voice as distinctly because he was paired with Lance, who has a very deep, booming, raspy voice of his own. So that may be why. We recently watched it. Trust me, if you rewatch Terminator, Paul Winfield's voice owns the scenes. But I guess the difference is in Terminator, he's far more relaxed. Like his whole entire character is like he's basically like Columbo, like a bit of a weirdo, a bit of a slob, a bit of like oblivious to what's going on. But when you turn on the cop mode, he can do it. He's a bit of a shambling guy in that movie, which is really good. Mars Attacks. Can Julio and I just talk about Mars Attacks?
Go ahead. I can contribute to this conversation, but if you want to leave me out of it,
you're
fine.
out. Sorry, you're outside. Get out. Bye, Rachel. I grew up with Mars Attacks. It was one of my favorite movies when I was 5 years old. I love Mars Attacks. It's probably one of my favorite Tim Burton movies. Not saying it's the best, but it's one of my favorites. And Paul Winfield was always one of my favorites because I found him very, very funny because his character is like the military general who thinks that everything's going to be okay, but he's just such a like pig-headed, oblivious guy, and he gets murdered so well. And there's the great...
like everybody else in the movie.
Like everybody. He's the first that gets murdered. And he has the great moment where they shoot the dove in front of him, and it's not a warning sign enough for him. And he's like, oh, well, we could work this out. It's like no doves and all of this. And I always found him to be a very amusing... There's this one bit, and Julio, you may remember this, where he's on the phone, like he's on the big military phone to like, I think his wife, and he's talking about like, things are going to work out really well for me. Like things are going great.
Does he say, I told you if I just kept my head down, stay quiet, things were going to go well? It's really good because they have him in contrast with the other military guy, which is Rod Steiger.
Yeah, who's
Rod
awesome.
Steiger is just Rod Steiger is more like Franklin's father.
Yeah,
he's just
insane,
like, loud
military,
and mean,
and right in that movie. He was right every step of the way.
Yes.
His character was fucking right.
We gotta nuke him now.
We gotta go to DEFCON 6 or whatever. Like now. We're going to warn the other countries. They never listen to Rod Steiger. It's upsetting. But Julio, what about you? You looked over his catalog of work. What were some notable pieces? And if you want to touch upon Mars Attacks a little bit more so yourself.
Well, Mars Attacks, once I saw it on his filmography, I'm like, oh, it's of course the soldier, the military guy that is, because I just saw him as a military guy, so instantly made the connection. The other one, but it's not until after you told me, because, I just saw, he's on an episode of Star Trek Next Generation, and I just saw the name, but I didn't recognize the name, so I didn't click on it. If I had, and I had seen what episode it was, then I would have known exactly who he was, which, I did after you told me. And yeah, he's the main alien guy in the episode where Picard has to figure out how to speak a new language that's made up of
metaphors.
Yeah,
he's in the famous Darmok and Jalad episode, and I'm glad that I pointed that out to you because I was like, oh, he's in Wrath of Khan. You love Wrath of Khan. You always talk about how that's like one of your favorite Star Trek movies. You're like, Wrath of Khan. I'm like, you remember him in Wrath of Khan, right? And you were like,
he dies quickly.
You're like, I don't remember him in Wrath of Khan. I know he's in it, but I don't remember him. I'm like, how could you forget he's the guy that gets the worm in the ear?
Oh, Chekhov.
Yeah, with
Gets to warm
Chekhov.
the year as well.
But he's the one that kills himself.
Yeah. It's like, oh, fuck this.
The fun Star Trek trivia fact there is Paul Winfield is the first black Starfleet captain we met in Star Trek. Not saying like, lead character, but like in the universe, like in the show, we had met other higher ranking people of color in Starfleet, but he was the first starship captain.
Yeah.
I do believe we met in Star Trek who was black. So that was interesting. He then dies. So that was another interesting moment for him. A part of his legacy, it's in his trademarks, I do believe. Paul Winfield was infamous for always dying in movies and shows. He would always die.
The
Terminator.
Sean Bean of his time.
Yeah, the Sean Bean. He was the black guy who died in everything. That's a part of his legacy, is he was, unfortunately, in a way, one of the people who furthered the trope of the token black guy who would die in things, which is unfortunate, but it is what his career was. So when he survived in this episode, it's a neat little subversion of expectations if you know the actor.
Yeah.
It's like when Sean Bean doesn't die in something. You're like, oh, subversion of expectations. Oh, cool. You made it to the end. Wow. And that kind of is a part of his legacy. He did a lot of B movies, like Terminator, dies. Mars Attacks, dies. Star Trek, both of them, dies. Yeah, he goes on. And his cousin, to go back to Star Trek, his cousin, whose name I'm forgetting off the top of my head, he was in Star Trek, the original series, as the Dr. Daystrom, who invented a supercomputer. And Daystrom is a character name that will linger for the rest of Star Trek as
Daystrom Institute.
He has an institute named after him in Star Trek, and he was in that. And his cousin, the same actor, was also in the B movie scene. He was Blackula in the Blackula films. So that's a fun little piece of trivia for you, where Paul Winfield and his cousin they got work where they could, but it seemed like they were just shifted into genre work a lot of the time, into blaxploitation, sci-fi, horror, that type of thing.
So some fun credits. So his first credit was in Perry Mason in 1965. So he was 26 when around that time. So a bit of a later start, but not as late as some of the other Spotlight actors.
Yeah.
Some interesting voice credits. I think he was in like the Wild Thornberrys.
Oh man, I would love to hear him in the Wild Thornberrys. I wonder who.
But the one that I picked out was that he was in 5 of these what appear to be direct-to-video or DVD kids films. Kids' 10 Commandments.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. He loves these 10 Commandment movies, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, and
oh wow, he's
steady
in a lot of them.
work.
yeah. He was doing a lot of those towards the end. I think the last credit was like 2003, and I'm pretty sure he died shortly after.
Yep, 2004.
That. A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich is a film that he's in.
He was in The Simpsons at some point as well, so that makes sense. Yeah, again, he did a huge catalog of work. We could just keep listing it. Like he's in a lot of things.
Yeah, he's got 127 credits.
Yeah,
on IMDb.
Yeah, he was Homer's boxing manager guy who was based off of I'm forgetting the guy's name. I know if your co-host Alex was here, he would be fuming at me. Not I don't know. He's more into wrestling than boxing, so he
follows boxing.
He'll be really angry at me, going, "No, you don't know who it is. It's this guy." And I'm sitting here going, "Tough shit. You're not here. If you're into sci-fi, Alex, you could tell me off, but you're not. So tough shit."
I would like to get a bit more biographical with him because I found a bunch of really interesting things.
Yes, I think. Can I touch upon the first piece of trivia?
No, because I have a different one that I.
Okay, interesting.
So I found that like he had a really interesting viewpoint when it came to being a black actor, and so he tried to avoid particular sorts of roles. And this is part of a quote that he said, like, about, like, he doesn't want to be in movies like this, of, like, the black hero in such films is no man at all. He is a thing, a sex object, and a sexist. He is without tenderness, without feelings, and far worse, without humanity.
Interesting.
And he was a big civil rights campaigner, and he's also has this amazing quote, and I love this idea that he used his acting career to help further the civil rights movement.
Yeah, like,
because he said, I saw then I could do a hell of a lot more for blacks by being a black artist rather than a black activist.
Yeah. Yeah, there's many people like that. Sidney Poitier, another great example of a similar idea as
Sidney
well.
Poitier got Winfield his first credited movie role in The Lost Man.
One of the things we should note is, I did not know this, but Paul Winfield was an Oscar-nominated actor.
He was the third black actor nominated for an Oscar in 1972, and that was after Sidney Poitier and James Earl Jones.
Damn that James Earl Jones.
I told you it would come back round.
James Earl Jones! Yeah, Paul Winfield also. I don't know if you did too much research into who he was as a person, Julio, but he was also gay in real life.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting fact to learn.
So
I didn't think about it.
He discovered that he was gay kind of later in life, because he'd started acting and he got into a relationship with one of the female leads in, I think it was a movie that he was in, and they were in a relationship for a little while and fizzled out for one reason or another. And then he had a couple of flings, and then he ended up with his partner, who he stayed with for 30 years.
Yeah.
And that was Charles Gillian Jr., who was an architect mainly, but he was also a set designer.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and he's a very interesting figure, like with the rabbi in TKO, Theodore Bickel, legends of their field with a wealth of stories of who they were as people. There's just layers to these people that, you know, with actors like him, that we get to have the benefit of looking at and discussing and kind of giving us a finer appreciation that Babylon 5 was able to get some of these legends on the show.
And it makes it interesting as well that his first role was in Perry Mason, which was led by a closeted gay man as well. And he's not only was in Perry Mason with, I think it's Raymond Burr.
Yeah.
He was also in Ironside, which was led by Raymond Burr as well.
They just couldn't separate, huh? Was James Earl Jones and Perry Mason at any point? We gotta find that out. One of the final things we gotta mention. Now, I've heard this over the years.
Yes.
But I wanted to get some clarification on this. And now, Julio, this may shock you. But Jerry Doyle, your favorite, Michael Garibaldi, he did not like Paul Winfield. And nor did Richard Biggs, the actor of Franklin.
Yeah.
They did not get on with Paul Winfield. It seems like the production for this episode was a nightmare, because Paul Winfield, from what we've gathered and garnered from interviews and from comments online, Paul Winfield did not give a shit and did not learn his lines and was reading off cue cards.
Oh, man, he pulled a Brando.
Brando had a fucking little microphone in his ear telling him how to act. And then sometimes it would pick up fucking radio waves from other places, and he would just read those because Brando actively did not care.
Yeah,
this was like I don't know what went wrong here, but what do you think about that, Julio? Of the guy that we've been praising, the guy we just went over his entire career, and he's like this big legend, and he's like this acting, prowess, and he was in great things like Terminator, and we all think he's really good in here. He was just phoning it in. Like, he did not bother. Like, he was sleepwalking this, and he didn't give a shit. What do you think?
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I am 100% on the side of Jerry Doyle and Richard Biggs and anybody else who was bothered by it because it is, it's unprofessional. I think it's obviously he was talented enough that we can't tell, and that's good for the production. But on the human side, I just don't. That's a shame to learn that.
No, it is. I find it very upsetting as well. But also, as somebody who looks at actors in shows and movies and stuff, it makes me really question things because I couldn't tell. I've never noticed. I've always just thought he gave a really good performance. So to find out for what we've been led to believe facts from the cast that worked on that episode, he didn't give a shit. He was phoning, he was reading off cue cards, the typical things of an actor who doesn't care, not trying, and would usually lead to a bad performance. You brought up Brando. At the end of Brando's career, he just for a good portion of his career, he just didn't give a fuck and just kind of gave bad performances for a majority of his career, sadly, because he just didn't give a shit. Paul Winfield, this was still around Mars Attacks time. He was still giving good performance. He gave a good performance here, but it's just so funny to us, at least. And I'd imagine for you, Julio, you analyze media. You must get an eye for when an actor is giving a bad performance or not. And it's just so funny that the typical thing that would let you know that an actor gives a bad performance of they literally didn't learn their lines.
It does make some of the shots make a bit more sense because there's a lot of straight on shots of him in this episode.
Every soldier lives with death, son. But I suppose sometimes we forget that our loved ones must live with it too. But believe me, I never tried to shut you out.
Maybe that's just the way it is between fathers and sons. Or maybe just us.
What do you rate GROPOS? Yum being bad, yum yum being good.
Yum yum.
Yum yum.
It's a yum yum all the way.
Yum yum.
All the way. I've got to close it out with a yum yum as well.
Yum yum.
So that is it for GROPOS, but we are still going to be talking, rewatching, and looking at Babylon 5. We've got episode that will be the next one. So I'm going to tell us all what the DVD description has for us for the next episode of Babylon 5.
On the next Babylon 5.
Episode 11, All Alone in the Night. Sheridan is abducted by aliens, probed and forced into gladiator-like matches. Delenn also faces a difficult mission. Her efforts to be a link to understanding humans makes her an outcast among the Minbari. Big episode. Big episode.
Big Sheridan episode.
Sheridan gets to roll around and do some Kirk stuff. And he meets our good friend Talon, the Nan with the sword. And this is the episode where a lot happens. Hey, Naroon comes back. Naroon's back.
Guess who's back?
Back
It's
again.
Naroon.
He's Naroon. He's back, baby. So that is it, people. We're done. We're dusted. We're out of here. We're on the road. We're on the road out. Julio, could you tell us all where people can find you and your podcast?
If you want to hear my co-host and I pound some ground and run Tomatoes Farm, just look up The Contrarians on any podcatcher, or you can go to our website, wearethecontrarians.com. Are the Babylon 5 movies, do they have tomato meter?
I would imagine. They're TV movies, so I don't know how that works.
Because we did the Doctor Who movie a couple months ago, and it was just, it requires some bending of the rules, but we did it because a friend wanted us to do it. So
you want to have
we might eventually
Alex for the gathering?
But see, no, because I don't know what the other ones are like.
The other ones are like, do you want to watch have you watched the show?
But so the one thing about the gathering would be that he can go in completely,
new,
not knowing anything.
Because it's the
he'll
start.
be fine.
Yeah.
Right. But do the other ones require him to...
Yeah, because it's like, do you know what a soul hunter is? Yeah, you should know.
Yeah.
Here's a movie about soul
They're
hunters.
further into the chronology.
Well, they were made in
of it.
season 5, so...
Yeah.
It kind of is like, Babylon 5 by now. That's why you're watching a Babylon 5 TV movie. It's not like Doctor Who where they were trying to revamp the franchise.
No.
That's the difference.
That's the thing.
And even that, the
'Cause
Doctor Who movie's
was
like,
still-
hey, Doctor Who fans, fuck you. Bye. We're going to America now. Fuck you.
Paul does a
Fuck
good
you.
job.
He's a human now, or whatever the fuck they said. Oh, boy, don't get me started.
Kiss is a girl.
Yeah, Kiss is a girl. Yum, yum.
Fuck off.
Here's a steampunk TARDIS because that's cool. Shut up.
Anyway,
Hey.
I was saying because we might do Babylon 5, a Babylon 5 movie just for fun, but I will have to finish the show first.
Yeah.
Sylvester McCoy in that library is perfect.
Yeah, but you people can find your show on the internet. What's your social medias at?
On Twitter, find us at Contrarian Prime. Same thing on Instagram at Contrarian Prime. If for some reason you want to check our Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Contrarian Prime.
Why wouldn't I
We're
want to
there.
check it out? You upload videos only on there. So
I know, but it's just like
where we can see
the-
your
the-
faces and see Alex and his wrestling paraphernalia. So
yes.
why wouldn't we want to go to the Facebook, everyone's favorite social media platform next to MySpace?
See, that's the thing. I don't know that Facebook is anybody's favorite social
But
media
I can
platform.
Facebook time people. FaceTime
Boomers.
boomers.
You're neglecting the boomers.
Yeah.
Who aren't we all neglecting the boomers?
Oh, maybe that's why they're so angry on Facebook.
Yeah. We are on the social media platforms of people's choice, YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast, always posting things on there, interactions, further things. Come follow us. All of this, including Julio stuff, will be in the description of this episode. You can email us at yumyumpod@gmail.com if you have something you want to send over, some questions, some queries, concerns, anything you're wanting to do. Fish in the mail, go on. Just not any letters about me asking my wife if she's dry. Okay? I'm allowed. That's what the ring is for.
You don't wear your wedding ring. Right?
Okay, I'm not allowed. I got to put on the ring and then I'm allowed. But
How about I throw you mine?
no. Oh no, I got the ring. Now I can ask. So, Rachel, you dry?
You didn't catch it, so you can't ask.
I've got it on now. My precious. My precious.
You didn't even put it on the right finger.
My ring finger is bigger than yours. Why would I do that?
You immediately slid it on
Like Bilbo. It's my ring. So, we have our Patreon in which you can support us on there. We make bonus extra content. We are going through the X-Men feature films, including the Deadpool movies and everybody's favorite, the Wolverine movies. And so we're working our way through those. And it's been a fun time. We're now in the era of our new Michael Fassbender X-Men movies.
The Wolverine is the next one that we will be recording.
So you can check us out, support us there, all in the description. Julio, a pleasure to have you here. As we've mentioned, Jakar did not show up here. He was too busy. He was too busy fucking Londo's wife, probably.
Ex-wife
now, Marielle. And he was too busy testing pleasure thresholds to say it, but we'll say it to you and to the yumlings listening out there.
Good eating to you.
Good eating to you.
Mr. Keller.